The key turns in the lock just as their laughter echoes through the apartment that I've been paying for. And when I push open the door to what was supposed to be our shared sanctuary, I see them tangled together in the bed that I bought. My stepsister Vivian's designer dress crumpled on the floor next to Marcus Chen's scholarship student clothes. And the sound that escapes my throat is something between a gasp and the death rattle of every naive belief I've ever held about friendship and loyalty and the goodness of people who smile while they destroy you from the inside out. Elena! Marcus scrambles to cover himself, but there's no shame in his eyes. Only annoyance at being caught, and Vivian doesn't even bother to hide her naked form as she stretches like a satisfied cat and smiles at me with the same fake sweetness she's been perfecting since our parents married when we were 12. You weren't supposed to be back until tomorrow. I came back early from the business trip to surprise you. I whisper, my voice sounding foreign in my own ears as I stare at the scene that's destroying everything I thought I knew about my life. About the man I've been supporting for 3 years. About the sister I've been trying so hard to love despite her mother's obvious gold-digging intentions when she married my father. Well, surprise! Vivian laughs, and the sound is like broken glass cutting through my chest. We've been waiting for you to figure it out honestly. Marcus and I have been together for 2 years now, and we were getting tired of pretending. 2 years, 2 entire years while I've been paying for this apartment, buying groceries, covering Marcus's rent and his mother's medical bills, and his endless stream of business ventures that never quite work out. Thinking all the while that we were best friends, that he cared about me, that maybe someday he might see me as something more than the convenient rich girl who could solve all his problems with a swipe of her credit card. Why? The word falls from my lips like a prayer, like a plea, like the last desperate attempt of someone who still believes there might be an explanation that doesn't destroy everything. Marcus, we've been friends since freshman year. You said you needed help, that your family was struggling, that you just needed a place to stay until you got back on your feet. You said we were roommates, friends, that you— We never loved you, Elena, Marcus interrupts, and his voice is cold now, clinical. Like he's discussing the weather or the stock market instead of dismantling my entire world with surgical precision. You were just convenient. Rich daddy, lonely girl desperate for attention, willing to pay for everything if it meant having someone around who pretended to care. It was Vivian's idea, actually. She's quite brilliant when it comes to reading people and their weaknesses. I turned to stare at my stepsister. This girl I've been trying to bond with for years, buying her expensive gifts and including her in my social circle, and defending her to my friends when they whispered that she was just like her mother, climbing the social ladder one wealthy connection at a time. And she meets my gaze with those cold blue eyes that I realize now have never held any warmth for me, only calculation. You have to understand, Elena, Vivian says, sitting up in the bed and making no move to cover herself, confident in her beauty and her victory. Marcus and I knew each other before he even met you. We planned this whole thing together. He researched your family, your father's business, your pathetic need for approval and friendship. We knew exactly how to play you from the very beginning. The words hit me like physical blows, each revelation another knife twisting in my chest as I understand the scope of their betrayal. The careful manipulation that's been happening for 3 entire years while I believed I was living my life but was actually performing in their carefully orchestrated drama, playing the part of the naive heiress who never saw the trap closing around her until it was far too late. The business information. I breathe, my mind racing as pieces of the puzzle start falling into place, creating a picture so ugly and devastating that I can barely comprehend it. All those conversations about Daddy's company, the deals I mentioned, the clients I talked about over dinner. Every single word, Marcus confirms. And there's pride in his voice now, satisfaction at a job well done. Do you have any idea how much money we've made selling that information to your father's competitors? How many deals we've sabotaged? How easy it was to destroy Whitmore Industries from the inside using the trust of his own daughter? My legs give out and I sink to the floor, my designer dress pooling around me like spilled blood as the full horror of what they've done crashes over me in waves that threaten to drown me completely, because it's not just about the money or the betrayal or even the humiliation of discovering that my best friend and my sister have been laughing at me for years while they played house with my resources and my secrets and my desperate need to be loved. It's about my father, my brilliant, strong father, who built Whitmore Industries from nothing and trusted me with company secrets because I was his daughter, his heir, the child he raised to carry on his legacy. And I've been the weapon they used to destroy everything he spent his life building, the Trojan horse that delivered his enemies right into the heart of his kingdom. Daddy's been so stressed lately, I whisper, thinking of his pale face and the way his hands shake when he thinks no one is looking. The long nights he spends in his office trying to figure out how their competitors always seem to be one step ahead, how deals keep falling through at the last moment, how clients keep choosing other companies for reasons that never quite make sense. The company's been struggling, the board is starting to question his decisions, and he doesn't understand why everything's going wrong. He had a heart attack last week, Vivian says casually, as if she's commenting on the weather, and my world tilts on its axis because I didn't know. No one told me. And I realize with growing horror that even this information has been kept from me deliberately, part of their plan to isolate me completely from my family and my support system. Stress-related, the doctor said. All that pressure from the business falling apart, wondering how his careful strategies keep getting leaked to the competition. He's in the hospital now asking for you, but we thought it was better if you didn't know. After all, it would just upset you, and you can't really do anything to help. I try to stand, try to move, try to do something other than sit on this floor while my world crumbles around me. But my body feels disconnected from my mind, like I'm watching this scene from outside myself, observing the destruction of Elena Whitmore with a kind of detached fascination that comes when reality becomes too painful to fully inhabit. You have to understand, Marcus continues, and there's almost a gentle tone in his voice now, like he's explaining something to a child. This was never personal. Well, not for me. Vivian has her own reasons for wanting to see you fall, something about inheritance and family position. But for me, it was always just business. You made it so easy, Elena. So desperate to be loved. So willing to give and give and give without ever asking for anything in return except the illusion of friendship. My mother always said that your father favored you over his stepdaughter, Vivian adds, stretching again and reaching for her clothes, with the casual confidence of someone who has already won everything they wanted. Even though I'm prettier, smarter, more socially connected. But you had something I couldn't compete with. You were his real daughter, his biological heir, the one who would inherit everything no matter how hard I tried to prove myself worthy. She stands up and begins dressing, each movement deliberate and graceful, performed for my benefit like everything else in our relationship has been a performance designed to manipulate my emotions and extract maximum advantage from my position and resources. So we decided that if I couldn't be the favored daughter, then there wouldn't be a favored daughter at all. If I couldn't have your position in the family and the company, then we'd destroy the family and the company until there was nothing left for you to inherit. Marcus was supposed to isolate you from everyone who might support you, drain your personal resources, and gather intelligence about your father's business operations while I worked from inside the family to create discord and plant seeds of doubt about your judgment and character. The plan is so elaborate, so carefully constructed, that I find myself almost admiring its cruel efficiency, even as it destroys me completely. Because they've thought of everything, anticipated every move, prepared for every contingency except the one where I might discover them like this, naked and laughing in the bed I paid for, confessing their crimes with the casual cruelty of people who never considered that their victim might be anything more than a convenient source of money and information. The charity gala is tomorrow night, Marcus says, checking his phone with the same casual air he's always had around me, the friendly, slightly helpless demeanor that made me want to take care of him and solve his problems and be the person he could count on when life became too overwhelming. We're going to announce our engagement there in front of everyone you know, everyone who matters in your social circle. We thought it would be a nice touch. Very public. Very humiliating for you when you realize that everyone will be watching you pretend to be happy for us, while they whisper about how pathetic you are, how obvious it should have been that we were never really your friends. I think about the gala, the annual charity event that I've been planning for months, using my connections and my family's reputation to raise money for children's hospitals. And I realize that even my genuine desire to help others and make a difference in the world has been turned into a weapon against me, transformed into the stage for my final public humiliation. Everyone already knows, Vivian informs me with that same casual cruelty, adjusting her makeup in the mirror like she's preparing for a normal day instead of explaining how they've systematically destroyed my life and my family's legacy. Our friends, your friends, the people you think care about you, they've all known about Marcus and me for months. We've been quite open about it, actually. The only person who didn't know was you, because you live in this little bubble of self deception where you think people are good and friendship is real and love conquers all. She turns to face me directly, and her smile is sharp enough to cut glass, beautiful and terrible, and completely without mercy or remorse. They've been laughing at you, Elena. At parties, at dinners, at all those social events where you've been so grateful for their attention and their company. They think it's hilarious that you're so naive, so desperate for approval that you can't see what's right in front of your face. They take bets on how long it will take you to figure it out, how much money you'll spend before you realize you're being played. The words hit me like a physical assault, each revelation another blow that drives me deeper into the floor, into myself, into a darkness so complete that I can barely remember what light looked like or felt like or why I ever thought it might be real. My phone buzzes with a text message, and when I look at the screen with shaking hands, I see it's from James, my stepbrother, the one person in my family who's tried to warn me about Marcus and Vivian, who's watched with increasing concern as I've pulled away from everyone who actually cares about me in favor of people who were literally being paid to pretend. "Dad's asking for you," the message reads. "He's been in the hospital for a week. Please come home." A week. My father has been in the hospital for a week, possibly dying from the stress of watching his life's work crumble because of information I gave to the people who were supposed to be my closest friends. And I didn't even know because I've been so completely isolated from my real family, so focused on maintaining relationships with people who see me as nothing more than a convenient source of funding for their actual lives. "I have to go," I whisper, struggling to my feet on legs that feel like they're made of water and broken dreams. "Daddy needs me." "Does he?" Marcus asks, and there's genuine curiosity in his voice now, like he's interested in the answer to a scientific question. "Because from what Vivian tells me, your father's been questioning your judgment quite a bit lately. All those failed deals, all that leaked information, all those times when his strategies somehow ended up in the hands of his competitors just after you'd had dinner with us and shared details about his plans. He's starting to wonder if you might be the problem, Elena, if maybe his daughter isn't as trustworthy as he thought." The implication hits me like a physical blow, the suggestion that my father might blame me for the company's problems, might think that I've betrayed him deliberately, and I realize with growing horror that this too is part of their plan, to make me doubt not just their intentions, but my own worth, my own family's love, my own place in the world. "He loves me," I say, but my voice sounds uncertain even to my own ears, because doubt is a poison that spreads quickly once it's been introduced into your system. And Marcus and Vivian are experts at finding exactly the right weakness to exploit, exactly the right fear to amplify until it drowns out everything else. "Does he?" Vivian echoes, tilting her head with false concern. "Because he's been spending a lot of time with my mother lately, talking about family loyalty and disappointment, and wondering how his own daughter could be so careless with information that could destroy everything he's worked for. Mother thinks he might be reconsidering some of his estate planning, given how unreliable you've proven to be." I stumble toward the door, desperate to escape this nightmare, to get to the hospital and see my father and somehow find a way to explain what's happened, to warn him about the conspiracy that's been operating under his roof for years. But even as I move, I can hear them laughing behind me, the sound of people who have accomplished exactly what they set out to do and are savoring their complete and total victory. "Elena," Marcus calls after me, and when I turn back, he's standing in the doorway of the bedroom, wearing nothing but a sheet and a smile that contains no warmth whatsoever. No trace of the friend I thought I knew, no hint that he has ever cared about me as anything more than a means to an end. "You should know that we really did have fun these past 3 years. You're very entertaining when you're trying so hard to be loved. Thank you for everything, the apartment, the money, the information, the connections. We couldn't have done any of this without you." I run then, stumbling through the apartment that I've been paying for, past the furniture I bought and the kitchen where I cooked meals for the man who was betraying me, and the living room where we watched movies while he texted my stepsister and planned my destruction. And I don't stop running until I'm in my car, shaking so hard I can barely get the key in the ignition. My vision blurred with tears that feel like they might never stop falling. The drive to the hospital passes in a blur of city lights and traffic, and the growing realization that I have lost everything: my best friend, my sister, my sense of reality, my father's business, possibly my father himself if the stress proves too much for his damaged heart, and most devastating of all, my sense of self, my understanding of who I am and what I'm worth, and whether I deserve any of the love and support I've been so desperately seeking. When I reach the hospital, James is waiting in the hallway outside the cardiac unit, and the relief on his face when he sees me is so genuine, so different from the calculated emotions I've been living with for years that I almost break down completely right there in the sterile corridor that smells like disinfectant and despair. Elena, he says, pulling me into a hug that feels like the first real human contact I've had in months. Where have you been? I've been calling and texting for days. Dad keeps asking for you, and I didn't know how to explain that you weren't answering your phone. They didn't tell me, I whisper against his shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne and remembering what it feels like to be with someone who actually cares about my well-being instead of my bank account. Marcus and Vivian, they didn't tell me he was sick. They said it was better if I didn't know. James pulls back to look at me, and I can see the anger building in his eyes as he processes what I've just told him. The protective fury of someone who loves me enough to be outraged on my behalf instead of entertained by my pain. What do you mean they didn't tell you? He asks, his voice low and dangerous. Elena, he's your father. You have every right to know when he's in the hospital. Who gave them the authority to make that decision for you? I try to explain about the apartment and the betrayal and the years of manipulation, but the words come out in a jumbled rush that doesn't make sense even to me. Because how do you compress 3 years of systematic emotional abuse and financial exploitation into a coherent narrative, especially when you're only just beginning to understand the scope of what's been done to you? James listens with growing horror, his face darkening with each revelation. And when I finish, he's quiet for a long moment, processing everything I've told him with the methodical precision of someone who's trained to analyze complex business situations and identify exactly where things went wrong. Elena, he says finally, this isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. They targeted you deliberately, used your good nature and your trust against you. You couldn't have known because they're professionals at this kind of manipulation. But Daddy's business, I whisper. All the information I gave them, all the deals that fell through because I was too stupid to see what they were doing. Will be dealt with, James says firmly. Dad is stronger than you think, and the company is stronger than you think. We can survive this, but only if we work together and only if you stop blaming yourself for being the victim of a coordinated attack. He takes my hand and leads me toward my father's room, and with each step I feel a little bit of my strength returning, a small spark of hope that maybe not everything is lost, that maybe there are still people in the world who love me for who I am instead of what I can provide for them. My father is awake when we enter, propped up in the hospital bed with wires and monitors attached to his chest, looking older and more fragile than I've ever seen him, but with eyes that light up with genuine joy when he sees me. And I realize with a rush of relief so intense, it's almost painful that James was right, that my father still loves me, still trusts me, still sees me as his daughter instead of a liability or a disappointment. Elena, he says, reaching out his hand to me. I was so worried. James said you weren't answering your phone, and I thought. His voice breaks a little, and I can see the fear he's been carrying, not just about his health or the business, but about losing me, about the possibility that I might not care enough to come when he needed me most. I'm here, Daddy, I whisper, taking his hand and squeezing it gently, feeling the familiar strength in his fingers, even though he's weakened by illness and stress, and the weight of fighting battles on multiple fronts. I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner. I didn't know you were sick. Didn't know? He looks confused, glancing between James and me with the sharp intelligence that made him one of the most successful businessmen of his generation. But surely Vivian told you. She's been here every day, very concerned about the family, very helpful with arrangements. The pieces click into place with sickening clarity, and I realize that even here, even in my father's hospital room, Vivian has been working her manipulation, positioning herself as the dutiful daughter while ensuring that I remain isolated and uninformed, painting herself as the caring family member while making me appear distant and unconcerned. She didn't tell me, I say quietly, and I watch my father's expression change as he begins to understand the implications of what I'm saying, the calculated cruelty required to keep a daughter away from her sick father's bedside. Dad, James interjects gently, there are some things about Vivian and Marcus that Elena needs to tell you. Things that might explain some of the problems the company has been having lately. Over the next hour, I explain everything: the manipulation, the betrayal, the systematic theft of company information, the deliberate sabotage of deals and relationships, the careful destruction of my family's business empire using my trust and my access as weapons against everything my father has spent his life building. My father listens with the same methodical attention he brings to analyzing complex business proposals, asking pointed questions, requesting details, building a comprehensive picture of the conspiracy that's been operating under his roof for years, and I can see his mind working through the implications, connecting dots, understanding not just what happened, but how it happened, and why it was able to continue for so long without detection. I should have listened to you, he says to James when I finish. You tried to warn me about Marcus, about the way he was isolating Elena from the family, but I thought you were just being overprotective. We all wanted to believe the best of people, James replies. Elena most of all. She trusted them because that's who she is. Someone who believes in the goodness of others, someone who gives freely and loves deeply. They exploited those qualities, turned her strengths into vulnerabilities. But the damage to the company, I whisper, guilt still eating at me like acid despite everything they've said. All those failed deals, all that lost revenue. Can be recovered, my father says firmly, and I can see the steel returning to his voice. The determination that built Whitmore Industries from nothing and can rebuild it again if necessary. Business can always be rebuilt, Elena. Family cannot. The fact that they tried to turn us against each other, tried to make me doubt your loyalty and make you doubt my love, that's the real crime here. A nurse comes in to check on my father's vitals, and James uses the interruption to pull me aside, his expression serious and protective in a way that reminds me how lucky I am to have at least one family member who saw through the manipulation and tried to warn me before it was too late. Elena, he says quietly, you need to understand that this isn't over. People like Marcus and Vivian don't just give up when their plans are exposed. They'll try to do damage control. Maybe even try to blame you for leading them on or encouraging their behavior. You need to be prepared for that. What do you mean? I ask, though part of me already knows, already understands that the public humiliation they've planned for tomorrow night's gala is just the beginning. The first shot in a war they intend to win by destroying my reputation and my relationships completely. The charity gala tomorrow, James explains. If they're planning to announce their engagement there, like you said, they'll want maximum impact. They'll paint it as a love story, probably make you look like the jealous friend who couldn't handle their happiness. They might even suggest that you knew about their relationship all along and were trying to break them up out of spite. The thought of facing all those people, all the supposed friends who have been laughing at me for months, while I remained obliviously grateful for their attention, makes my stomach turn with a mixture of dread and humiliation so intense I can barely breathe. I can't, I whisper. I can't face them, knowing what they all think of me, knowing how they've been entertaining themselves at my expense. Yes, you can, James says firmly. And you will, because we're not going to let them win. We're going to fight back, Elena. We're going to expose them for what they really are and make sure everyone knows the truth about their manipulation and their crimes. How? I ask, because I feel so broken, so completely destroyed by their betrayal, that I can't imagine finding the strength to fight back. Can't picture myself doing anything other than hiding in shame and letting them have their victory. Together, he says simply, as a family, the way we should have been doing all along. My father's voice calls us back to his bedside, and when we return, he's sitting up straighter, looking more like the powerful businessman I've always known and less like a sick old man defeated by circumstances beyond his control. I've been thinking, he says, about tomorrow night's gala. I assume you're still planning to attend, Elena? I don't know if I can, I admit. Everyone will be watching, waiting to see how I react to their announcement. I'll be the entertainment for the evening. Then let's give them a show they'll never forget, my father says. And there's something dangerous in his smile now. Something that reminds me why his competitors have always been afraid of him and why Whitmore Industries became one of the most successful companies in the state. But not the show they're expecting. He explains his plan, a coordinated response that will expose Marcus and Vivian's crimes publicly, using the very gala they've chosen for my humiliation as the stage for their downfall, turning their moment of triumph into their complete destruction. We have documentation, he says, financial records, communication logs, witness statements from employees who noticed unusual activity. We've been building a case against whoever was leaking our information, and now we know exactly who to target. But won't this just create a bigger scandal, I ask? More public attention, more gossip. Elena, my father says gently, they've already created the scandal. They've already made you into public entertainment. The only question now is whether you're going to be the victim or the hero of this story. I look between my father and James, these two men who love me enough to fight for me, who see me as worth defending instead of a convenient source of funding, and I feel something shifting inside me, some small spark of the strength I thought I'd lost forever, beginning to flicker back to life. What do you need me to do? I ask, and my father's smile is proud and fierce and full of the kind of love that doesn't come with conditions or expiration dates. Just be yourself, he says. Be the strong, intelligent, generous woman I raised you to be. Let them make their announcement, let them think they've won, and then we'll show everyone exactly what kind of people they really are. The next 24 hours pass in a blur of preparation and planning, with lawyers and investigators and public relations specialists working around the clock to compile evidence and prepare presentations and coordinate a response that will leave no doubt about Marcus and Vivian's guilt and my complete innocence in their schemes. I spend the day of the gala getting ready with a kind of mechanical precision, choosing my dress and my jewelry and my makeup with the careful attention of a warrior preparing for battle. Because that's what this is, really. A war for my reputation and my dignity and my right to exist in the world without shame or apology. James picks me up in his car, looking handsome and serious in his tuxedo. And as we drive toward the hotel where the gala is being held, he reaches over to squeeze my hand with the same protective gesture he's been making since we were children. Remember, he says, you are not the villain in this story. You are not the foolish girl who got taken advantage of. You are Elena Whitmore, daughter of Richard Whitmore, heir to one of the most successful companies in the state, and you deserve respect and love and friendship that doesn't come with hidden agendas. I know, I say, and for the first time in days, I actually do know it. Actually believe it somewhere deeper than the surface wounds left by Marcus and Vivian's betrayal. The gala is everything I planned it to be. Elegant, sophisticated, filled with the kind of people who matter in our social circle, the business leaders and philanthropists and socialites who control the flow of money and influence in our city. I see Marcus and Vivian the moment I walk in, holding court near the champagne fountain with a group of people I used to consider friends. And I notice how their laughter dies down when they see me, how they watch me with the careful attention of predators, wondering if their prey might actually fight back. I move through the crowd with James at my side, accepting condolences about my father's health, and compliments on the event planning and small talk about business and charity work. And I can feel the undercurrent of anticipation in the room, the sense that everyone is waiting for something dramatic to happen, some public confrontation or breakdown that will give them something to gossip about for months. Elena! Marcus approaches me with his usual friendly smile, the same expression he's been wearing for 3 years while he systematically destroyed my life and my family's business. You look beautiful tonight. I'm so glad you decided to come despite everything that's been happening with your father. Thank you, I reply evenly, not giving him the emotional reaction he's clearly expecting, not providing the drama that would make his evening more entertaining. I hope there are no hard feelings, he continues, his voice carrying just loud enough for nearby guests to overhear. About yesterday, I mean. I know it was a shock, but Vivian and I have been trying to find the right way to tell you about our relationship for months. We never wanted to hurt you. The manipulation is so smooth, so practiced, that I almost admire the skill involved even as I recognize it for what it is, an attempt to control the narrative, to make me appear unstable or jealous, while positioning himself as the considerate friend who tried to spare my feelings. Of course not, I say with a smile that doesn't reach my eyes. I'm very happy for you both. True love is so rare, especially the kind that develops over years of careful planning. Marcus's smile falters slightly at my tone, and I can see him trying to figure out whether my comment was innocent or pointed, whether I'm going to be the broken, sobbing victim he was expecting, or something more dangerous. Ladies and gentlemen, the event coordinator announces from the small stage at the front of the room. We have a special announcement this evening. Mr. Marcus Chen would like to share some exciting news with all of you. This is it, the moment they've been planning, the public humiliation designed to destroy any remaining sympathy people might have for me while elevating their own status as the golden couple, who found love despite the obstacles placed in their way by a jealous, possessive friend. Marcus takes the microphone with the confidence of someone who believes he's already won everything that matters, and Vivian joins him on stage wearing a smile that's sharp enough to cut glass and a dress that probably costs more than most people make in a month. Thank you all for being here tonight for this wonderful charitable cause. Marcus begins, his voice carrying easily through the ballroom, filled with people who represent the height of our social hierarchy. As you know, this event has always been close to my heart, especially because of the generosity and vision of my dear friend Elena Whitmore, who has been instrumental in making tonight possible. The praise feels like acid being poured into an open wound, because even now, even in this moment of planned betrayal, he can't resist twisting the knife by acknowledging my contributions while preparing to destroy me completely. However, he continues, tonight is special for another reason as well. I'm thrilled to announce that my beautiful girlfriend Vivian Harrington has agreed to become my wife. The applause is immediate and enthusiastic, because this is exactly the kind of romantic drama that high society loves. A handsome young entrepreneur and a beautiful socialite finding love and happiness in front of everyone who matters. A fairy tale story that confirms their beliefs about romance and destiny and the power of true love to overcome any obstacle. I clap politely along with everyone else, maintaining my composure even as I feel hundreds of eyes watching for my reaction, waiting to see if I'll break down or make a scene or provide the entertainment they've been anticipating since the rumors about Marcus and Vivian started circulating months ago. We're so grateful to all of you for your friendship and support, Vivian says, taking the microphone with practiced grace. And we're especially grateful to Elena for bringing us together and for being such a generous friend to both of us during the early stages of our relationship. The words are chosen carefully, designed to sound gracious while actually implying that I knew about their relationship all along and supported it, that I'm not a victim of their deception, but a willing participant in their love story, which makes any hurt or anger I might display seem petty and unreasonable. In fact, Marcus adds, we have Elena to thank for much of our success this year. Her insights into the business world, her connections, her generosity with both her time and her resources, we couldn't have achieved any of our goals without her support. More truth twisted into a weapon, more acknowledgement of my contributions framed in a way that makes me complicit in my own exploitation. And I can see the satisfaction in both their faces as they watch me from the stage, probably expecting me to excuse myself quietly and spend the rest of the evening hiding in the bathroom or the parking lot while they accept congratulations and bask in the attention they've been craving. And now, Marcus says, we'd like to invite Elena to join us up here so we can thank her properly for everything she's done for us. This is the moment I've been dreading, the public spotlight that will force me to either play the role of the gracious friend who's genuinely happy for their success or reveal myself as the bitter, jealous woman they want everyone to believe I am. And I can feel my heart racing as I realize that every person in this room is watching me, waiting to see which version of Elena Whitmore will appear on that stage. But then I remember my father's words about being the hero instead of the victim of this story, and I remember James's reminder that I am Elena Whitmore, daughter of Richard Whitmore, heir to an empire built on strength and intelligence and integrity. And I stand up with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you're worth. Thank you so much, I say, as I make my way to the stage, accepting the microphone from Marcus with a smile that's genuine for the first time all evening, because I finally understand what's about to happen, what my family has prepared for this moment. I'm so honored to be included in this celebration. I turn to face the crowd, these people who have been entertaining themselves with my pain for months, while I remained blissfully unaware of their cruelty. And I feel a calm settle over me that I haven't experienced in years, the peace that comes from finally knowing exactly where you stand and exactly what you need to do. Marcus is absolutely right that he and Vivian have me to thank for their success. I begin, my voice carrying clearly through the ballroom filled with captains of industry and social luminaries. In fact, they owe me quite a bit more than gratitude. And I can see confusion starting to ripple through the crowd, murmurs of uncertainty as people try to understand whether I'm about to embarrass myself with a public breakdown or if something else entirely is happening here. You see, I continue, over the past 3 years, I've been incredibly generous with Marcus and Vivian, not just with my friendship and my emotional support, but with my financial resources, my business connections, and unfortunately, with confidential information about my father's company that I shared in what I believed were casual conversations between friends. The murmurs are getting louder now, and I can see Marcus and Vivian exchanging glances behind me, probably wondering if I'm about to expose their manipulation, but confident that it will just make me look vindictive and unstable. What I didn't realize until very recently, I say, my voice growing stronger and more confident with each word, is that Marcus and Vivian have been in a romantic relationship for over 2 years, during which time they've been systematically using the information I provided to sabotage my father's business deals and sell confidential data to our competitors. The ballroom erupts into shocked whispers and gasps, because corporate espionage and betrayal of friendship are exactly the kind of scandals that capture the attention of people who live for drama and social intrigue. And I can see faces in the crowd shifting from anticipation to fascination to outright horror as they begin to understand the scope of what I'm revealing. Furthermore, I continue, raising my voice to be heard over the growing noise, this wasn't a crime of opportunity or a moment of weakness. It was a carefully planned conspiracy that began before Marcus and I ever met, orchestrated with the specific goal of gaining access to Whitmore Industries' trade secrets and ultimately destroying my family's business empire. I gesture to the large screens that have been set up throughout the ballroom for the charity presentation, and they flicker to life displaying financial records, email communications, recorded phone conversations, and photographic evidence of Marcus and Vivian's conspiracy, all compiled by the team of investigators my father hired to track down the source of the information leaks. These documents show a pattern of systematic theft spanning 3 years, I explain as the evidence scrolls across the screens, including detailed records of information sold to our competitors, financial transactions tracing payments for corporate secrets, and communications between Marcus, Vivian, and their handlers discussing strategies for extracting maximum value from their access to our family and our business. The crowd is completely silent now, except for the sound of people pulling out their phones to take pictures of the evidence, because this is the kind of scandal that will dominate social media and business news for weeks, the kind of story that ends careers and destroys reputations, and sends people to prison for fraud and corporate espionage. Behind me, I can hear Marcus trying to interrupt, probably preparing to deny everything or claim that the evidence is fabricated. But James appears beside him with two men in dark suits, who I recognize as federal investigators, and I watch Marcus's face go pale as he realizes that this isn't just a public embarrassment, but the beginning of serious criminal proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, I say, my voice carrying easily through the now silent ballroom, I want to thank you all for being here tonight to witness the real announcement of the evening. Not an engagement, but the exposure of a criminal conspiracy and the beginning of justice for crimes committed against my family and our business. The federal agents are placing handcuffs on Marcus and Vivian now, reading them their rights in voices that carry clearly through the ballroom as hundreds of the most influential people in the city watch the dramatic conclusion of a conspiracy that has been operating under their noses for years. This gala was planned to raise money for children's hospitals, I continue, and I'm pleased to report that despite the distractions of tonight's revelations, we've exceeded our fundraising goals thanks to your generous donations. The children who will benefit from tonight's success deserve better than to have their charity event overshadowed by crime and betrayal. I hand the microphone back to the event coordinator and step down from the stage as Marcus and Vivian are led away in handcuffs. their faces showing the kind of shock and devastation that I felt just 24 hours ago when I discovered their betrayal, and I realized with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness that justice, while necessary, doesn't erase the pain of learning that people you trusted were never worthy of that trust. The crowd parts to let me through as I make my way back to James, and I can see the respect in their faces now, the acknowledgement that I'm not the pathetic victim they thought I was, but someone strong enough to fight back and smart enough to win. Someone worthy of their approval and their friendship, for reasons that have nothing to do with my bank account or my social connections. How do you feel? James asks as we make our way toward the exit, leaving behind the chaos of reporters and investigators and social media posts that will ensure this story dominates the news cycle for weeks to come. Empty, I admit, because while vindication feels good and justice feels necessary, it doesn't fill the hollow space left by 3 years of believing in people who were never real. 3 years of pouring my love and trust and resources into relationships that existed only to exploit my good nature. That's normal, he says. It takes time to recover from this kind of betrayal. But you'll rebuild, Elena. You'll find people who deserve your friendship and your trust. Real people this time. As we drive away from the hotel, leaving behind the wreckage of Marcus and Vivian's plans and the social circle that entertained itself with my pain, I think about my father recovering in his hospital bed, probably watching news coverage of tonight's events with satisfaction and pride. And I realize that while I've lost people I thought were friends, I've rediscovered family members who actually love me. The next few weeks pass in a blur of legal proceedings and media attention and business meetings as my father and I work together to repair the damage done to Whitmore Industries and implement new security measures to prevent future espionage attempts. And through it all, I'm amazed by how much stronger I feel now that I'm no longer carrying the weight of false relationships and manipulative friendships. Marcus and Vivian are both charged with multiple felonies related to corporate espionage, fraud, and theft of trade secrets. And as their cases work their way through the legal system, more details emerge about the scope of their conspiracy and the number of people they've hurt in their quest for money and social status. It turns out that I wasn't their only victim. Marcus had run similar schemes against other wealthy students during his college years, and Vivian had been working angles against various family members since her mother married my father, always positioning herself as the loyal daughter while undermining everyone around her for personal gain. The revelation that their betrayal was part of a larger pattern of criminal behavior helps with my healing process, because it confirms that nothing they did was really about me personally. I was just another mark in a long series of cons, chosen for my resources and my access rather than any personal failing on my part. My father recovers fully from his heart attack, and our relationship grows stronger than it's ever been as we work together to rebuild both the business and our family bonds that were damaged by years of manipulation and mistrust. And I discover that fighting for something you love alongside people who love you back is infinitely more satisfying than trying to earn affection from people who see you as nothing more than a convenient source of funding. 6 months after the gala, I'm in my office reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant announces that I have a visitor, and when I look up from my desk, I see Alexander Reed standing in my doorway with the same patient smile he's been wearing since we were children. The same quiet strength that made him the one person who tried to warn me about Marcus without making me feel stupid for trusting him. Alexander, I say, genuinely pleased to see him because he's one of the few people from my old social circle who reached out after the scandal broke, not to gossip or satisfy curiosity, but to offer genuine support and friendship. This is a surprise. I hope it's a good one, he says, settling into the chair across from my desk with the easy confidence of someone who's known me long enough to see past the public persona to the real person underneath. I wanted to talk to you about something important. Over the next hour, he explains that he's been watching my recovery process with admiration and growing feelings that go beyond the childhood friendship we've maintained over the years, that he's seen how I've handled the betrayal and the legal proceedings and the media attention with grace and strength and intelligence. And he wants to know if I might be interested in exploring a romantic relationship with someone who's known me since before I had money or status or connections. Someone who fell in love with Elena Whitmore, the person, rather than Elena Whitmore, the heiress. I know the timing might not be perfect, he admits, and I understand if you need more time to heal from what Marcus and Vivian did to you. But I also know that real love doesn't wait for perfect timing. And I've been in love with you for years, waiting for you to see what was right in front of you. I look at this man who's been a constant presence in my life since childhood, who tried to warn me about Marcus's manipulation without ever making me feel foolish for trusting the wrong person, who supported me through the scandal and the legal proceedings without expecting anything in return. And I realize that he represents everything I thought I had with Marcus, but never actually did. Genuine care, consistent support, respect for my intelligence and my worth as a person. I'd like that, I tell him, and his smile is so bright and genuine that it makes my heart skip in a way that Marcus's calculated charm never did. Because this is what real affection looks like, what honest emotion feels like, what it means to be valued for who you are instead of what you can provide. A year later, Alexander and I are engaged, planning a wedding that will celebrate not just our love for each other, but our shared commitment to building a life based on honesty and mutual respect and genuine partnership. And when I walk past the apartment building where I used to live with Marcus, I feel nothing but gratitude that I escaped that situation before it destroyed me completely. Marcus and Vivian were both convicted and sentenced to several years in federal prison. And while their downfall doesn't erase the pain they caused, it does provide a sense of closure and justice that helps me move forward without bitterness or regret, secure in the knowledge that they can never hurt me or anyone else again. My father and I have rebuilt Whitmore Industries into something stronger and more secure than it ever was before, with new safeguards and security measures that prevent the kind of infiltration that nearly destroyed everything he spent his life building. And our relationship has evolved into a true partnership based on mutual respect and shared goals, rather than the traditional father-daughter dynamic that left me vulnerable to manipulation. James has become not just my stepbrother, but one of my closest friends and most trusted advisors, someone who proved his loyalty when it mattered most, and who continues to support me as I navigate the challenges of running a major corporation and planning a wedding and building a life with someone who deserves my trust. On quiet evenings when Alexander and I sit together planning our future, I sometimes think about the girl I used to be, so desperate for approval and so willing to give everything to people who saw her as nothing more than a convenient source of funding, and I feel a deep sadness for her naivety, but also a fierce pride in her strength, because she survived the worst kind of betrayal and came out the other side stronger and wiser and more capable of recognizing real love when it appears. The charity gala has become an annual tradition that Alexander and I host together, raising money for children's hospitals while celebrating the power of genuine relationships and authentic connections. And every year, I'm amazed by how much more meaningful the event feels when it's planned by people who actually care about the cause, rather than people who see it as an opportunity for personal advancement. 2 years after the scandal broke, I'm sitting in my office reviewing wedding plans when my assistant brings me an envelope with no return address. And when I open it, I find a letter from Marcus, written from federal prison, asking for forgiveness and claiming that he's found God and wants to make amends for what he did to me and my family. I read the letter once carefully, analyzing it with the same attention I bring to reviewing business contracts. And I can see the manipulation even in his attempt at repentance, the calculated appeal to my sympathy and my known tendency toward forgiveness, the subtle suggestion that his suffering in prison somehow balances out the suffering he caused me. I put the letter in my desk drawer without responding, because I've learned that forgiveness doesn't require me to welcome toxic people back into my life. That healing doesn't mean pretending that untrustworthy people have somehow become trustworthy. That moving forward doesn't require me to forget the lessons I've learned about protecting myself from predators who disguise themselves as friends. 6 months later, Alexander and I are married in a ceremony that celebrates not just our love, but our families and our genuine friendships and our shared commitment to building something real and lasting together. And as I dance with my new husband, surrounded by people who love me for who I am rather than what I can provide, I realize that the betrayal that nearly destroyed me actually saved me, because it forced me to recognize the difference between people who deserve my trust and people who exploit it. The final chapter of this story isn't about revenge or justice or even love, though all of those elements played important roles in my journey from victim to survivor to someone strong enough to build a life worth living. It's about the quiet satisfaction of waking up every morning next to someone who chose me not because I could solve his problems or fund his dreams, but because he genuinely enjoys my company and respects my mind and wants to build a future with me as an equal partner. It's about working alongside my father to grow a business that employs thousands of people and contributes to our community in meaningful ways, using the resources and connections that Marcus and Vivian tried to steal for their own selfish purposes to create something that benefits everyone involved. It's about the security that comes from knowing that the people in my life have proven their loyalty through actions rather than words, that they've chosen to stay, not because I'm useful to them, but because they value me as a person and a friend and a family member. Most importantly, it's about the peace that comes from understanding that I am worth loving, that my trust is valuable and should be protected, that my generosity is a strength rather than a weakness, as long as I'm careful about who receives it, and that real relationships are built on mutual respect and genuine affection rather than financial dependency and emotional manipulation. When people ask me about the scandal now, about how I survived such a comprehensive betrayal and rebuilt my life so completely, I tell them that the secret wasn't revenge or justice or even the satisfaction of seeing my enemies punished, though all of those elements helped with the healing process. The real secret was learning to see myself the way people who actually love me see me, not as a convenient source of funding or a naive mark to be exploited, but as Elena Whitmore, a woman worthy of respect and love and friendship that comes without hidden agendas or expiration dates. Marcus invited me to move in as a friend, but I moved out as a stranger, not because I became someone different, but because I finally learned to recognize the difference between people who deserve to know me and people who only want to use me. And I chose to save my friendship, my trust, and my love for those who have proven themselves worthy of such precious gifts. In the end, that might be the most important lesson of all, that we teach people how to treat us by what we're willing to accept. And that sometimes the greatest act of self-love is walking away from people who see us as less than we are, even when they've convinced us that their presence in our lives is better than being alone. I'm not alone anymore, and I never will be again, because I've learned to surround myself with people who value me for who I am rather than what I can provide. And that knowledge, more than any revenge or justice or public vindication, is what finally set me free from the prison of seeking approval from people who were never worthy of my time, my energy, or my heart.